third phase of moon.
Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon Radio Live. I'm your host, Dr. J. Andy Elias, with, of course, the founder of Third Phase of Moon, Blake Cousins, who's been working real hard to get all the footage out there from around the world, hitting 95,000 subscribers and 65 million plus views. And Blake, I'm honored to be part of your team. Thank you very much, Blake.
Good to be on the show. It's going to be an exciting one. Again, we're live, Third Phase of Moon, and people on the flash chat are coming in right now. And if anybody's got any questions, 347-934-0378. Call in live and speak to our guest, Dr. Roger Lear. Take it away, John.
That's right, Blake. You said it. I was just about to announce Dr. Lear, the one and only alien implant doctor. He has done 16 surgeries and removed 17 anomalous objects from bodies which have been tested from the top laboratories around the world. Dr. Lear, thank you for joining us here today. How are you?
Oh, fine. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be with you again.
Now, can you tell the viewers what's the newest information you have on these implants? Because from last time we spoke, it seems that as our technology here on Earth gets better, we're able to probe into these things deeper and deeper. And if I recall, the last thing you said was that there's actually a deep space radio frequency emitting from this. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yes, we're able to use a frequency detector. And from that, we can determine both in the megahertz and kilohertz range what the frequency is. Unfortunately, on our part, is that we need a piece of equipment called a frequency analyzer. And we've been looking for someone to donate one to the cause. Even an older analyzer would suffice. It doesn't have to be a digital modern one, because the older ones work just as well. Once we would have that capability, then we could do an analysis of the radio wave itself and tell a lot more about it. These are in the FM band range, and through the sources that we've been able to acquire, they fall within the range of deep space fixed or mobile deep space frequencies. Now, the question, of course, arises is why an advanced intelligence would be using anything like a radio wave. So there's only two possible answers that we can theorize. One is that somebody else is able to listen also, meaning someone human-wise. And the other possibility is that we're not picking up a radio frequency at all, but we're picking up a harmonic of another type of communication, which is most probably scalar technology.
We're taking calls from around the world. We're going to get to the callers in a bit, but we still have some more questions right here at Third Phase of Moon for Dr. Roger Lear. He removes alien implants from abductees that seem that these materials are extraterrestrial in origin. We just did the documentary full-length feature on Dr. Roger Lear and his work called the Alien Human Project, and it was quite fascinating. We had a young 15-year-old Jack Graham do the interview on behalf of Third Phase of Moon to ask the questions, and I thought it was quite interesting to get this young generation involved to try and find out the truth. All the young people from around the world really believe that we're not alone in the universe. What was your take on young Jack Graham's questions, Dr. Roger Lear, in regards to the phenomenon?
Oh, I thought his questions were right on, very specific, and I've done thousands of hours of radio, and even with the biggest shows around, I thought that Jack was right to the point with his questions. So I keep saying that his generation is not human, and that's not to be insulting. It's actually a compliment, because I believe that the human race is being manipulated genetically into another form of being, which a term has been coined called Homo noeticus. We're Homo sapien, people of my age, but the new age, let's say less than 35 years of age, is this new creature, which is Homo noeticus. Now, those people are capable of knowing things without ever reading them out of a book or hearing them on television or getting them from their parents or relatives. And if you look at the world situation, you find very, very intelligent people, for example, in the Middle East, who appear on TV, appear on the internet, and those people are quite well educated. They speak English. They're all young, and they've fomented from one country, which was Egypt, a revolution which has encompassed the entire Middle East. Now, that's never been done for without bullets. They've used the electronic media. They've used, the internet, iPhones, and so on to do this. And then, you look at other aspects of mankind. You can hand any kid, I don't care what the age, some type of an electronic device, an iPhone or whatever, and you don't have to ask them to go to a book of directions to find out how to use it. They automatically know. And then if we listen to what kids have to say, it's pretty profound.
Doc, you hit a very important point, that everything that was happening in the Middle East, the uprising, was all done with technology, without bullets. And hundreds of years ago, it was done with swords. Only now, in this day and age, can something happen and it could spread to the other side of the world with a piece of device that fits in the literally pockets. And that's what's changing the world. And on the same token, that same device is what's giving us the ability to give the free flow of ideas and the free flow of topics such as this to the world, because the mainstream media isn't doing their job, obviously, which is why Third Phase of Moon is. And that's such a great thing. Now, when we were talking about young Jack Graham, one of the things I find most fascinating is that all of us here on the radio, when we were in school, it was science fact that this was the only solar system. Fact. Now, when he's in school, it's science fact that other solar systems exist. And not only do other solar systems exist, they exist in the Goldilocks zones. They estimate up to between 5,000 to 10,000 planets alone, just in our galaxy. Now, can you expand on that? And then I wanted to ask you about the deep space frequency. What do you think is receiving that signal?
Well, I think that the objects are sending data. And I think that the data most probably has to do with a genetic experiment that's going on worldwide. Now, I don't know what kind of data it is. Most probably something to do with the function of our DNA. But how could we be, so egotistical to try and understand information that a society is gathering that's 80 to 1 million years older than we are? It's incomprehensible that any human mind of the highest IQ could even get the concept of what advanced civilization logic would be like. So, if there is someone listening to the information, I don't think they're getting that much.
It seems we have a caller here. Caller 916, welcome to Third Phase Moon Radio. Where are you calling from? What's your name?
Hello?
Yeah, you're on the air.
Hey,
Third Phase of Moon Radio. How you doing?
I'm good. This is Rick.
Rick, it's a pleasure to have you on. You have a question for any of our hosts or special guest, Dr. Lear?
I'm just here listening to him right now, so if anything comes up and he needed anything, let me know. But so incredible, his knowledge.
He is. And, let me ask you this question. Do you have a UFO story that you could tell the world by any chance?
Yeah, I've been through that. Yes, I have. I actually met Dr. Lear and Travis in I forgot where it was. It wasn't Long Beach, but it was in L.A. Well, about a year ago or so, with Devon and them. So, first of all,
Rick, I want to ask a question. This is Blake Cousins. Were you able to watch the Alien Human Project in regards to Dr. Roger Lear's work?
You know what? Honestly, I gotta explain myself real quick. I'm not a paranormal guy like ghosts and even UFOs and stuff. I call myself a victim. I've been through it. I know what's up. And I really don't like to watch other people's stuff for the simple reason that I don't want people to think that I took this from them or I heard this from Travis or I heard this. So I'm not really into it, but I have everything you need to know in it. And I love what Dr. Lear is saying. I mean, he seems to understand, probably even before it happened to me.
You make a very good point there. Jim Sparks is another famous abductee who has conscious recall of 95% conscious recall is what he estimates of his experiences. And he doesn't watch anything, whether it be documentaries or big movies, even Independence Day at the time when he was speaking about 10 years ago. He was talking about it being a blockbuster hit, and he kept having to hide his face because he didn't want to catch a glimpse from it. So people couldn't accuse him of getting the information he was saying from those movies. And I respect what you're saying. Now, you said you were a victim. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I will. You can hear me?
Yeah.
Got you. Go ahead.
Right. My first thing about the not watching other people's things, because even, I hear other stories, and I know they're not true. You know what I mean? Just because of what I'm going through. And I understand that those people will read 100 books on the topic or watch 100 documentaries or do all this, and then they kind of seem to mix up everything into their own event. You know what I mean? So I don't want to even get near that where, oh yeah, I read all these books, I know this, and you cannot say that I've taken anything from anybody, but there are real ones out there.
Well, I'd like to make a point, John. The subject, for example, abduction, is very complex. John Mack wrote in his first book, Abduction, about the 7 traumas of the abduction scenario. Now, what our caller is, I think, essentially saying, let's look at an analogous situation. We have a child who is an abductee, but yet he gets through life quite normally until he has to go to the dental office. And then he's seated in the dental chair, and the nurse comes in, puts the little bib around his neck, and everything's just fine. And they recline the chair, and everything's just fine. And the minute the doctor comes in and turns on the bright light, the kid goes bananas because this strikes a bell. Now, numerous abductees who don't want to look at even an alien face or a gray alien face because it has, whether they know it or not, an effect on their psyche, which is a continuous question as to their questionability of the reality of the situation. And I don't know if our caller is an abductee because he hasn't said,
yes,
but he evidently has experiences, and
yes,
that can be quite irritating and traumatic if you look at that. So I don't think that his not wanting to look at these kind of programs is just the fact that he might see something and tell about it or compare it or have some degree of non-reality to it.
You're exactly right. And the memories you're talking about they're called trigger memories. And most abductees, when they first were taken, yes, I have been taken, but like I said, I call myself a victim. But they're called trigger memories because they usually happen when you're about 4 or 6, and then maybe you won't even remember till after you're like 17 or something. But there's always something in your life. My first trigger memory to make me remember everything was dogs barking. And like I said, it could be a dentist chair. It could be a snap you hear when dropping a pan. It could be literally anything. But my situation was dogs barking. And when I call it a trigger memory, is as soon as you hear that, you recognize it as something that happened to you. You don't even remember. And the trigger will let kind of like the floodgates go.
That's exactly right on. And
then
the general public has absolutely, I shouldn't even say the general public and the professionals, psychologists and psychiatrists, have not a clue as to the number of children who are absolutely terrified of things like clowns and animals with large eyes. And that's pretty specific.
That's exactly correct.
The phenomenon of alien abduction is a worldwide epidemic, it seems to me, and to get the word out and people taking their stories seriously is probably half the battle. Like Rick here, I'm sure I don't know, have you come out public with this story? You kind of keep, or have you shared this?
No. I've done the YouTube thing. I've had like 500,000 views, and I told my story, and that's how I met with Yvonne and Dr. Lear and Travis and everybody. So I'm actually out there, but been going through some things, so I haven't been kind of concentrating on other things right now, because actually the world is in a crazy time right now. People aren't paying attention. They just don't care. So, I'm not the kind of guy that wants to waste my time when I got a family. But I would, I come back like situations like this, and I go to LA when Dr. Lear speaks and listen to Yvonne, and, because those are the ones that are like literally the only ones, the last ones that are actually trying to do something.
Believe me, if someone is to notice the situation worldwide as to what's happening today, I would probably be willing to make a money wager on the first person would be an abductee.
Oh, yes, and you know what? We are more important than the people that matter. You know what I mean? Because somebody that has nothing to do with anything can tell you you're crazy, he's lying, it's over. And then they control the masses, so the weak-minded believe that, and that's law. That's how it is. That's all they have to do, and then they'll just move on. You know what I mean? It's in my eyes, you guys don't know anything about my story or anything, but in my eyes, it's too late. They've been trying for a long time, and the thing about them is they can see ahead of us.
Yes.
We really don't have that much time. So if we would have started 100 years ago, that would have been a late start on changing.
Well, I'm very pessimistic, and I think unless we get extreme external help, which from the outside, that our society is relatively on the way downhill.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what I know about. Being that I was taken, my story is ridiculous. It's like literally out of this world, and I've been given and shown many, many, many things, and that's why I believe that we are done. We will not be the leading species on this planet for long if we keep what we're doing up. Like they say, it could be the butterfly next, it could be the dolphin, it could be the dang, anything could be next to just not really control, but just be the top of the chain on this planet.
If there's a ray of hope and light in the darkness, it's due to the fact that some segment of an external civilization is interfering with our genetics. And John and I were talking earlier about the Roper poll. Now that's really a huge number when you multiply it on a worldwide basis. So, what's the remedy for the situation is to actually change the human being so that we change what we're doing. So, we have a chance. So I think there is a chance that the intervention that's been going on, because you see, things, that go on about the world. Most people have their eyes shut, they're asleep, there's no awakening at all, but people are beginning to wake up. They know about GMO foods. They know about the corruption in government, ours and other governments, and how governments work together underhandedly to control the population. So. So there, the other thing I mentioned before, the internet. The internet is almost like a synthetic universal consciousness, and that you find some guy that invents a spoon that's made out of some weird material, and then strangely enough, some guy on the other side of the world will invent the same spoon. And then there's the 100 monkey effect, which is the spreading of this knowledge across the world. So we've actually created, I think, something in which the people who are in control did not expect. The internet is not going to go away unless we do away with all our electrical power, and then it still might not go away.
I got a few comments on what you guys are saying, but real quick, I want to remind all the listeners live that this is an open panel. This is your chance to tell your story, to speak to our guest, to speak to Blake Cousins, to speak to myself, speak to Rick. Call in, area code 347-934-0378. Once again, 347-934-0378. Now, let me go back to what you were saying. I heard an interesting theory that Mars used to be like Earth, and the people who inhabited it at the time turned it into a cinder, and the same fashion, almost identical to what we're doing now. And just as you two gentlemen were talking, that this might be too late. And like you said, Dr. Lear, it might take an external force to come and correct it. What's it going to take? I mean, what do we need to wake the world up? Now, the mainstream media is not doing their job. Thank God for the internet, because that is what is making us having the ability to tell such stories such as this. You were not going to hear this on Nightline tonight or the 6 o'clock news, and that's the sad part. But with numbers going up and people uploading videos on YouTube directly, not having to go through the Hollywood and be censored and all that, and that's what I think is such a major thing. And another thing I want to add is Dr. Jacobs said that they've been hybridizing people. They've been taking the semen from men over from women and creating these hybrid babies. And 50, 60 years ago, these babies, these hybrids, looked very much alien. And as each generation progressed, where they, used more humans and bred them again, they looked more and more human. His conclusion is that they've now are looking as human as can be, and they're actually walking the planet. Now, if the rover poll, or the poll we were talking about earlier, is accurate, that means 120 million people, maybe more, have been abducted and have been part of this hybridization program. What's your guys' take on that?
Well, I think that David Jacobs is correct in the assumption of the production of hybrids. I think that if an advanced race, and again, I think you'd have to have one hell of an ego to try and guess what an advanced civilization of 80 to 1 million years older than we are knows or is trying to do. But based on human logic, you've got to have more than one plan if you're trying to save a planet. And evidently, I'm not quite so sure that it's the human factor on this planet which makes it so important. It could be the planet itself, or it could be the things that humans have done to this planet, which have a reflection far beyond our solar system, which we have no knowledge of. So, you can't say these are altruistic beings. I think they're beings, there's a certain segment of them that were responsible for us existing in the first place. And maybe for the genetic traits they gave us were traits for survival at one time. But now we've turned them into righteous greed and not only affect the human population, but by the actions that we perform are having an effect elsewhere. So it's good. It would be a good idea, based on human logic, to have a secondary program in place in case the genetic manipulation didn't work.
Go ahead.
I agree with everything. I agree with everything you said. I love Dr. Leary. I consider him a friend. He probably doesn't remember me, but I mean, we spent a little time together. But I'm like the total opposite, but on the same page. And like I said, I'm a victim. You could literally ask me what they do, why they do it, how they do it. I've seen it. I've been there. I literally was there. So I can tell you why they do this.
Rick, can you tell our viewers from around the world listening, we get the word out. Can you tell us, first of all, what did they do to you? Go ahead, Rick.
Well, I'm just going to tell you like a little summary of what they did, because it's a 2-hour story, literally. And then you can ask me anything about it. But let me tell you about why they take us, first of all. They take us, what I call them is, they call them pure humans. Because they don't make hybrids from what I saw, the breeds I was with. They make humans, and they call them pure humans. And their definition to me of a pure human was like a first-generation human. You know what I mean? It's like the first generation ever. And they call them pure humans. I call them backup humans, because they constantly, and for as long as we've been here, we've had gaps. So what they do is they keep a backup supply of us for when we do become extinct again, because we've been extinct a few times on this planet. And even sometimes it'll be 3 million years of, it's all different. So they're always ready to keep us alive. You know what I mean? And this is right now the best place for us. And they do keep us up there. You know what I mean? But they don't keep the humans that were born on Earth up there. They only keep the humans that were born in space up there. As far as I know, they don't let them come down here. You know what I mean?
Does it have something to do with the gravity or their atmosphere? Because apparently from one of our guests that we've had recently, Ron Gardner, spoke about this J-Rod, he called it. It was a short gray that was stored at S4, Area 51. Right. And Dr. Dan Burrish, who went in there, had to go in a pressurized suit. And when they wanted to punish this being, they injected they changed the atmosphere in the air. Do you think that's one of the reasons why they don't allow these?
Well, they, you got to think logical. I mean, look at us. We can go to the bottom of the ocean, get samples, do whatever we want, but can we live there?
No.
No, at some time, we're going to need to come up. We cannot live there. And it's the same thing with them. To us, air is normal. To them, it could be like an ocean. It could be like gas. You guys, we don't know, but I know one thing. They cannot live here. This is not a place for them to dominate and take over and live. This isn't that kind of project, which they are working on a project. So I really don't know about J-Rod and all that stuff, because it would literally be like sharks catching us, keeping us hostage underwater. How long are you going to last?
Not very long under those circumstances. This is a question that can be posed to both of you. I saw a really interesting video where it basically, some person was talking about how the aliens are now removing the eye, and the person can see it painlessly hanging by the optic nerve, and they're placing the implant behind it, because they're saying it's harder for humans to remove, especially since Dr. Lear has removed 17 of them. What do you guys know about this?
Well, I want to talk about the actual Tim Cullen removal of the implant, and what he explained in the interview on the Alien Human Project is that when Dr. Roger Lear was removing the object, that it felt, I think it was the other doctor removing it, but he felt like that it was part of him and the system. And was there a point in the operation where you could actually see the implant maneuver out of the way? It kind of didn't want to be removed from the body, Dr. Roger Lear? Was there an instance in this case?
Yes, we have video of that, and that's not just true of the Cullen case, but many cases where you insert instruments, we use a device called a C-arm so we could see actually inside the wound, and that helps cut the surgery time down, because we very often have to use multiple instruments in order to get to grasp the object. But now these instruments we use in surgery are all non-magnetized surgical steel. So we can't say that the instruments have a magnetic effect, but yet when you place an instrument and it becomes near the object does move out of the way. And so therefore it takes sometimes a couple of hands to go in with two or more instruments to kind of trap it. Once it's clamped, then it's excised from the surrounding tissue. So the answer is yes, they do move, and this has nothing to do with the case of the biological implant, which you can see moving under the skin when you touch it with your finger. That's a totally different object.
You know, I want to go back to Rick. You were talking about these perfect humans. Do you know why they're creating them, as you call them, backups?
Yeah, I know why. But I got to ask real quick a question about Dr. Lear, because they put an implant in behind my eye. Now, everything they did to me, doctor, was on my right side. So is it all on one side? Because mine was in my right eye.
No, when I first started doing this, every case was on the left. And
really?
So we prematurely started making the conclusion that whatever it was they were doing and why were they doing it on the left was because we wanted to use the right side of the brain for control. But then, bingo, all of a sudden we got a case that was on the right and then another one that was on the right. And so
right.
It doesn't really make any difference. Now, the nasal implants that I've heard about, and again, I've never seen one. I'd do anything to find one or have someone bring one in that came out in a filthy handkerchief or whatever. I mean, as long as they showed the object. But the things that abductees describe with nasal implants, when the instrument is placed up the nostril, they all describe a cracking sensation, and audibly they hear it. Well, one time I was lecturing in Italy, and there was two neurosurgeons who were there invited to speak, and they were lecturing about implants that were human implants, and they were placed in the brains of prisoners who were violent, and they were used to remotely control their behavior. And they showed the approach, and you wouldn't believe it, but it was a rod that went in through the nose. There's two little plates on the undersurface of the skull, which is part of a bone called the ethmoid. And these are very thin plates. They're called ethmoidal plates. And they cracked these plates and placed the implant on the base of the brain. So when I heard this, I mean, all of a sudden, a light bulb went on, and it just made all the sense in the world of what the abductee was feeling when they described some kind of an instrument, like a rod with something on the end of it that went up through the nostril, heard a cracking sound, and soon after the procedure was finished. And then later on in life, they may have a nosebleed and something came out.
Alien Abduction Diaries, our latest documentary in regards to the alien abduction phenomenon. We had Jacqueline and Rachel, abductees who pretty much spilled their guts on what it's like to be abducted by aliens. And Dr. J. and Elias, they spoke of a certain blood type, and we've been getting responses back after we released this video, people contacting us at Third Phase of Moon saying, wondering what the blood type was, because they're thinking they might have the same blood type. And is this the kind of the common occurrence when you remove these implants at all the patients you've done this with, Dr. Roger Lear? And I want to ask Rick the same question about what his blood type is. What is this all about, Dr. Jandy Elias? What kind of blood type did Rachel and Jacqueline have?
Oh, excuse me.
I don't recall the blood type, but I do know that it was the same one that Rachel had, Jacqueline, and Dave, for that matter. And if I recall what Jacqueline said correctly, it's about less than 6% of the population has it, and it has immunity to many diseases that most other people don't. Now, obviously, I'm not a medical expert like Dr. Lear is, so maybe, Dr. Lear, you can expand on that?
Yes, we've done blood typing on all the 16 cases that we've done, and they're relatively all different. So I looked at world statistics on blood types for human implantation, and there is no one blood type that's less resistant to the immune system. The immune system is entirely independent with itself. I mean, there's nothing logical about blood type and immunity. We know that in all the cases that we've done, we removed objects surgically, that there is absolutely no inflammatory or rejection reactions, but the blood types are all different. So the only part of the blood that has an effect on the immune system is the white cells and the platelets, and it has nothing to do with the type.
I'd agree.
You know, another thing, off this topic of this amazing blood type that I would love, I wish I would have it for that matter, because knock on wood, I've had some times where it's obviously not proven as immune as these people, but I saw this in the same video where it talked about the eyes. This person was speaking about when he was led on the craft, there was this pool, and there was these people that were acting like zombies in the sense that they didn't seem to be in control, and the aliens were telling this individual to breathe this thick liquid, and I wonder if you guys know anything about this.
Rick, did you have that experience?
Yeah, that's actually my story. Not the zombie part, though. That's actually like, first of all, they took me to the moon. It's in the back of the moon. They never said the dark side of the moon. People always say, "Oh, Rick, you said the dark side." I never said the dark side. It happened to be dark, but what they told me where we went was the back of the moon. And like the second stage when I got to the moon was the gel pool. Now, I know Dr. Lear understands, but the old days, we used to have these slides. They used to be metal slides in the parks and stuff like that. But now everything's plastic and stuff. But it's the equivalent. It was a pool probably about 40 yards wide but round, and it was a funnel shape, like a funnel but clogged up. You know what I mean? And it'd be the equivalent of filling it up with oil and trying to climb out of it. You can't do it unless you're naked. But what my situation was, I had woken up as I was sliding down the funnel pool. And what woke me up was people were screaming. They were just panicking. Everybody was panicking. And so I kind of stopped myself, because my hands were dry. At the time, they didn't get wet. I wasn't in the gel pool. And I could just see everybody panicking. Like, I thought everybody was drowning. I thought they all were screaming for a reason. I thought, I'm new to this, and I figured that they were screaming for a reason. So I got scared, and I held on, and I thought at the time that they were yelling at me from the top. I thought they were saying, "Go ahead, go under." They said, "You can breathe it, you can eat it, you can digest it, your waste will turn back into it, you can live in it. Don't be afraid." But I didn't believe them. I didn't know, but at this time, they were using telepathy with me. They weren't screaming at me, but at this time, I didn't know what was going on, so that's how I described it. And there were people under it, and they weren't under there just like laying down. They were like fighting, like it's not a natural thing for us, of course. And there was this one guy who kept trying to escape, and I was really tripping off this guy because I knew he had to be here for years, because there's no way he figured out how to climb out of this thing for as long as I've been in there. So he started climbing out, and they would hit him with this like a light, like a bluish green light, and then he would slide back into the pool. He did this about 3 times. And I really tripped out because I was thinking, when he escapes, what's he going to do? He's on the moon. Where is he going to go? You know what I mean? There's nothing. I didn't get it. So at that time, I got real scared. So I slid myself under the jail, and all I did was stick my nose and my mouth out because I didn't want them to hit me with that light and make me slide. So after that, I blacked out, and I went to the next stage. But in conclusion, I kind of think I probably ended up going under when I blacked out. But that's real.
Do you know why they want these humans to go into this thick liquid? What's the purpose of it?
I came up with a couple of...
I have a theory of why. Now, there are many stories besides the pool. Many abductees are placed in glass or plastic-like cylinders, and then the cylinder fills up with this fluid, and of course they become extremely panicky, but they're placed in a state of hypnotic trance, which subdues the emotions of the individual, and once the fluid goes to the top, they find out that they can breathe. But I believe that they do this because they're trying to protect themselves, and I think this fluid is a bath that probably kills a harmful bacteria that we harbor within our bodies, and it's a form of a sterilization technique which they need to preserve them. Case in point, the individual that was picked up in Varginha, Brazil by the military police officer, he sat him on his lap in a Jeep without any protection gear, gloves, or anything else, and took him finally to a hospital. Well, that young 25-year-old Marco Ceresi was his name, very healthy young military police officer, was deceased within about 3 weeks, and we couldn't look at the autopsy record for almost a year. But when I finally got a copy of it, what he died was like from an Ebola-like infection that evidently he got from the ET. So there is, NASA may be crooked, they may be under the thumb of the CIA, they may be militaristic in their action, but one thing they're not is stupid. They may do stupid things, but the people that are behind them are pretty sharp.
Right.
And they know enough that when we send something to another planetary body, what do? It goes through a terrific sterilization process first, because especially if they're going to bring it back, they don't want any foreign bacteria. So that's my take on the liquid. I think it's how are you going to get to all parts of the body? I mean, our GI tract alone contains probably in excess of 100 billion bacteria of various kinds. So any one of them could be pathogenic to these entities.
Rick, you said you had a theory on yours. Go ahead.
This is my question. Real quick. I want to point real fast. Rick, hold one standby. My question is about implants again, but this time the government issued implants. We're tracking our own, dogs, cats. We're putting the implants in. And I think we're even going as far as putting them in our babies and our children. What do you think about how this direction is going? What's it all about? Just tracking and following everybody around, basically like a GPS. You're walking with you. They know where you're at. What do you think about this, Dr. Roger Lear?
Well, yeah, we know that's going on. I mean, it's almost a requirement that you get your dog chipped. But, and they say it's such a simple process. You just use an injection needle with a large enough gauge needle, and you inject the chip subcutaneously. But I want to say that you can ask any veterinarian who's either autopsied or taken one of these chips out after a certain number of years, and you're going to find a massive inflammatory reaction where the body begins to form what's called a fibrous inclusion cyst, and it's trying to isolate that chip from the rest of the body. We don't find this in alien human implantation. There's no rejection and there's no inflammation.
You know, with the implants, years ago, obviously it was apparent that they were for to locate people. But I've heard that people have these implants removed, and maybe that same night, maybe a month later, the aliens find them and put them right back in, which goes to show that they do far more than that. What are your theories, both of you, Rick and Dr. Lear, of what these implants can do other than tracking people? Do you think they read thoughts? Do you think they may insert thoughts?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, they're relaying important scientific information in relation to a massive genetic experiment which is going on Earth. Now, I'll give you another argument against location devices. I had a case in Brazil of a woman who had 2 implants in the foot, and one had come loose and was working its way towards the skin, but it had come from an area near the bone, and I told her that this was dangerous, not just because it was an implant, but if it came out and broke through the skin, there'd be a canal that would lead directly to the bone, and she could wind up with osteomyelitis or infection to the bone. And she said, after I explained that to her, she doesn't want it removed. And I said, well, why do you say you don't want it removed? And she says, well, let me tell you, they told me never to have this implant removed, and that it is not a location device, and they stopped a bug in midair and a bluish-white light. And they said, we know the DNA of this bug. We know that it has an electronic signature, and we can track this bug anywhere on this planet. So, again, you're dealing with a society or a generation that's 80 to 1 million years ahead of us, where they possibly need a device, a tracking device, when we know that our own DNA emits an electronic signal.
You know, another interesting... Oh, go ahead, Blake.
I wanted to hear more about the DNA releasing these signals. Can you go in more depth about this? That's the first I've heard of it.
Well, we know that each strand of DNA has an electronic signature, and this has been picked up, and all that is needed, but we're not at that stage yet during black budget projects, is to humans is to build a device, and that device will capture that DNA signature anywhere. Doesn't you won't need tracking devices, so the so-called mark of the beast is not going to come to reality. I've seen advanced television and communications through a local company here in Southern California, which I'm not at liberty to mention, but the television and communication of the future is just absolutely nothing like we conceive it is today, with even a beautiful flat screen picture hanging on a wall. And all this research all came from the study of the movement of a butterfly wing. And they found out that the movement of the wing releases nanovoltage, and a projection of the color of the undersurface of the wing, which has all colors, produces a rainbow using nanovolts, which projects about 1.5 inches from the rear of the butterfly wing. And that's the basis that's in operation. It's used in the laboratory now. And this is going to be the next phase in communication all over the world, because, to put a satellite up and have sunlight generate electricity where we need, thousands of watts of power to stream, and then can't stream information enough along one channel, this will totally revolutionize anything, and you won't receive the picture on a screen. you will receive it in a holographic image.
You know, Doc, you touched on a very good point. Just us right now, we're speaking with words, with our tongues, in a very two-dimensional manner. What we see on TV is, again, flat screen, 2 dimensions. I think once we are able to overcome that barrier, or maybe it's the pineal gland, I don't know what it is that causes telepathy, then we could finally get to the 3rd dimension of thinking and communicating. And once that's done, then things would be dramatically different. What are your takes on that? And I do have one other thing I want to ask you, too. Have you ever heard of that our number system being archaic and these aliens actually using these pies, basically these circles with the lines in them, saying that they're in 12s? So one circle with a line pointing outward could be 144. A circle with a line going to the radius, to the center, would be 1 through 12, something along the lines of that. Has any of you two heard about that?
Rick?
It looks like we may have lost Rick. Rick, you standing by?
Here.
Go ahead, Rick.
I'm here. Yeah, like I said, I can't explain stuff like Dr. Lear, of course, but numbers are everything. Numbers are everything. That's all I know about that. I don't know about the circles and all that stuff, but I'm incredibly into numerology now and all that stuff, and as much as people are into horoscopes. You know what I mean? So I don't know details.
What Dr. Roger Lear just explained to us is that our DNA, our bodies are transmission devices built in by something, and there must be a reasoning behind it. Exactly what it is, maybe we'll find out one of these days. Do you think that there's a certain connection with the DNA and the possibility in the near future that we will be able to communicate with just our thoughts, Dr. Roger Lear?
Yes, I do. And as far as numbers are concerned, if you look at ancient literature, you'll learn a lot about numbers, and especially the number 12. The number 12 is always followed by the next number, which is 13. And so, you find people say unlucky number 13, but that has absolutely nothing to do with it. 13 completes the circle of numbers, and if you look again into historical literature, astrology, for example, has how many houses? There's 12 astrological houses.
12 months in a year.
Right, 12 months in a year, etc. But there's always a secondary factor, which is a number 13. At the crucifixion, or the last dinner of Christ, how many people were present?
How many?
12.
How many planets they say we have? Is it 12?
Yeah, it's 12, but there's also
12.
the 13. There's everything that makes the 13th. Now you go through Masonry, for example, and you get to the 32nd degree. Well, the 33rd degree, which would be equal to to number 13, you are a Shriner. That's as high as you can go in the United States. And in Europe, you can go as high as 70-some-odd degrees of the Masonic Lodge. So the number 13 has a great basis in the ancient literature and a form of mathematics that has to do with even architecture. And some of the mathematics that Richard Hoagland talks about, the sacred mathematics, revolves around the numbers 12 and 13.
13 is my lucky number.
Right. It can be lucky, some consider it Friday the 13th unlucky. But if you looked at the probable general population, there'd probably be as many good things happening on the 13th to the right person in the right house. And,
right. How many people remember when good things happened on the 7th? they don't focus on that, so they're only focused on the 13th. But if they really thought about it, it might be the 5th that is their lucky day. But they don't think about it.
We have no explanation for what we see in random numbers. For example, you're driving down the street and you see it's a 111.
Yep.
And then you'll see 111, and then you'll see 111 somewhere else.
See, that's exactly what I was saying, how numbers are everything. Numbers are everything, literally. I mean, everybody's got their own number because you are all born on a certain day, but everybody's numbers work with their lives, I believe.
And it makes sense, too, because mathematics is the only universal language. So go on, Blake. What did you have to say?
This is what, the Matrix might have been right on the button, that we might be living in some kind of processing.
You know what?
We're running out of time. We've got 5 minutes left on the show. We want to get Dr. Jandy Elias, Dr. Roger Lear, and Rick. Last words, Rick. Go ahead. Last words, Rick. Thanks for calling in to Third Phase of Moon.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to leave it with what you were just talking about. I'm sounding crazy as heck, but this life we're living right now, everything you're doing right now, me and you, everything you did today, is no different than any dream you ever had. Every dream you've ever had has been as real as this. The only difference is when we wake up from the dream, we come to this dream, and we will wake up when we pass on. But when it's all said and done, this is literally nothing different than any dream you've ever had. And just thanks for having me, Dr. Lear. It's an incredible pleasure to be in the same show with you. I'm sure I'll see you soon in L.A. or when I'm down there.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. Thank you for calling in.
Dr. Lear, any words for the public before we go?
Well, I would just like to say that if they haven't seen the Alien Human Project, maybe you can tell them how to find it, and might be interested in taking a look.
That's right. Third Phase of the Moon is all about getting the word out. It's getting it straight to the people, unfettered, for free. Go on to YouTube, search Alien Human Project, or just right under Third Phase of the Moon, and you will find it. Also, Alien Abduction Diaries, 2 feature-length films shot in 1080 HD, brought out straight for the public to see. And the purpose of this is to get the world to open up their eyes and open up the moon. Thank you, Dr. Lear, and Rick, thank you for having the confidence to come on the show. Blake, back to you.